Hello YouTube, back at it again, and I did a thing. I know I've talked a lot about it in recent months, especially a video I released a few months ago about my 3 year of ownership with my car, and I did something, and probably a lot of you are going to predict what I did. I bought it. It says car's no longer a lease. It is officially going to be mine, hopefully, someday. You know how those go. But it's now financed versus leased. So I made the decision to keep the car. After 3 years, I thought the right decision was to keep it. I did have to get a new license plate here in Pennsylvania. They are, the license plate that I had, they are recalling them. They're at the end of their lives. Mine was 10 years old. So it was due for a new plate. So, you know, new car, right? So yeah, I did decide to keep the car. A lot of the reason is the current market. The market is terrible, especially with interest rates. I probably could have got another lease with a lower interest rate, but I really don't want to be paying for a car the rest of my life. I'd like to actually maybe own this car or own a car in the near future, which is why I ended up going with this. And I must say, I mean, it was a kind of a no-brainer situation. Yeah, the car's had issues, and we've talked about a lot of the issues, but I think it was wise to just keep this one, being that I already know the history. The price that I got guaranteed buyout was based off of 2020 prices, not 2022 prices. So I could not touch this car in the used market for what I got it for, which made the decision so much easier to just go ahead and keep this one here. So yeah, it's now officially been 3 years as of August the 10th that I bought this car. And let's talk about some of the things that has gone on with the car. Now the engine bay is a little dustier than I normally like to keep it, but kind of making this video as a last minute situation as I thought about it, and I'm like, well, I already made the 3 year, but maybe we'll make a actual video here. And we're going to talk a little bit more. Give you some in-depth views of how this car is holding up. Turbo shot. Some clip. But yeah, I did manage to pull the trigger on it. I am keeping the car. So basically where we're at currently is the car just had a bunch of stuff done, which I made a whole video ranting about the service, and that's something I'm going to tell anybody that wants to buy this, and I'm sure it's going to be pretty universal across the industry, but this is my experience, and I have a Kia, and this is my experience with Kia. I made a whole video that I'm probably not going to ever see the light of day. I really ranted really hard about Kia service and the quality of their service departments and how long it takes for things to go through the commands, and it kind of was irritating. I'm actually throwing some clips of the video. I won't have any audio, but I'll throw in clips of my rental car that I had. They had this car for, I think it was 14 or 15 days. And I mentioned it in the last video, my issues with the car at this point in the 3 years of ownership. Hopefully this wind's not too bad. Let me put my back here. Sorry, ton of wind noise, and I feel awkward talking in front of people walking, and there's been a lot of foot traffic today here at the park, and I can never find anywhere good to film. This is my favorite place, but sometimes it's busy like this and I just feel awkward. I don't mind talking to myself in front of a camera, but other people walking around. So we'll cut down some of the wind noise. The biggest issues I've had with this car in recent months here, and this has been an ongoing issue with the car, is there's a bearing in the lower steering column. This has electric power steering, and there is a bearing in the lower column that seems to go bad in just about all of these, especially these early production. This is actually a fairly early production car as far as releasing goes. To my knowledge, I was probably second in the immediate Western Pennsylvania area to buy one of these cars. The first being from that particular dealership was a Wolf Gray GT line. This is being a 21 EX in black, but it was fairly early. I think its production is, let's see here, this is June of 2020, June 24th. I bought it in August of 2020, so it was fairly new off of the line when I bought the car. So it does have some early issues. One of them is that bearing in the lower column, and apparently nobody has the tool for that. It's a tool that only like a few dealerships have, and the dealership that I took it to had it, but gave it away the day that the car went in for service, not realizing that it was needed for this car, which is irritating. That progressed the amount of time it took for the car to get back to me. Pan around here. And because of that is what part of the reason why it took so long. But once I finally understood and they explained to me what happened, is apparently it went back to the dealership that it came from, and then it went to another dealership who then borrowed it from that dealership, and it was basically chasing that tool from dealer to dealer, trying to figure out who had the tool. So it did get done. It had the Pennsylvania State inspection done, had the tire rotation completed as well. So it did get a full service while it was in. It also has a recall for the side curtain airbags. I guess some of them are positioned wrong in these cars. Mine, however, were not, and they were able to get that remedied pretty quickly. The other thing that, so the bearing in the steering column, not to waver too much, basically you get a noise when you're turning the steering wheel, particularly at low speeds. You notice it when you're like maneuvering in and out of driveways, you're trying to like parallel park something, you know, where you're doing a lot of turning and you got to turn kind of quickly. You'll really hear it. It makes like a best way I can describe it as a bearing noise. It's a very rough, like that kind of, it's hard to describe. You'll know it if it's doing it, because it's a rubbing noise in the steering column. It didn't affect anything with the car. The car didn't drive any differently. It just was kind of annoying, and I was afraid that eventually that could progress and get worse. So I did get that done. That was done under a technical service bulletin for this car, which this car was still under bumper to bumper, so all this was covered. Also, the horns had died in it. I talked about that in the last video and even demoed it. They were able to replace the horns. Now that did take, like I said, 14 to 15 days, which in my opinion is way longer than it should have taken, being that if Kia would get these tools out to these dealerships so that they can actually get these cars back on the road for customers. As far as everything else goes, though, they said everything else looked fine on the car. They claimed that the brake pads in the front are wearing down, and they will be due to be replaced soon. I personally haven't looked at them in depthly. What I can see through the wheel, they are at least half pad, unless the inner pad or the right side looks differently than the driver's side. However, the rotors are beginning to pulsate, which is also a very common issue on these cars. Most people around 10,000 miles or more, around that area is when they start experiencing these issues, and I'm about to turn, I believe, 14, sorry. So it's not unheard of, and I'll probably end up doing the front brakes on this. If not by the end of the summer, next year I will put probably the power stops like what I put on the Oldsmobile on this. Something that's ventilated, cross-drilled, that will be able to give it a little bit extra performance and hopefully prevent future warping, as these cars are known for. Being that I bought this car after 3 years and that I could have walked away from it, I think says a little bit about the car in my opinion, that I did decide to keep this car. and that it's been a very good car. And I even just saw an article, I haven't read the article, about how it's kind of a hidden secret, this car, and I really believe that these cars are going to be quite reliable. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of problems outside of what its initial issues have been. Each year, I'm assuming, I would feel that they should start to improve even more than what this one is here, being that this is an early original production car. So I believe a lot of these issues that I've experienced should hopefully be ironed out in the newer ones. And hopefully all they do is bring us more features and more things available for the car as time progresses. I feel like it's a very stable car, very good car. It does decent on gas. It has plenty of power. It's very luxurious inside. It's very comfortable with the faux leather seats, the heated and cooled seats in this here model. So, I mean, it's well equipped for what it is. I think the prices of these cars, while they are even still a little bit more inflated, have come down a little bit. Right now, interest rates is what's going to hurt you. So I feel like these are just going to continue to be a great investment for somebody looking for a mid-size sedan, which is not something very common in this market currently. Everything's gone to SUVs, which, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind an SUV. But for what I use and what I do and with this car, is this is just basically my work car, and it's something that's also a little bit spirited and fun to drive, and it's sporty looking. I feel that it was a good investment for where I'm at in my life, and that, you know, an SUV, while would be nice for the storage space and maybe having some all-wheel drive, it's all things that I don't need for at least $10,000 more than what this car's base MSRP is. And that would be something that's not as loaded as this car. So I feel like this is a very good place. I've had opportunities to drive the equivalent year-ish 2020 and a 2019 Altima. They don't do anything for me in comparison to this car. I feel like this car is a way better value. You do have the peace of mind of the 10-year, 100,000 mile if you buy the car new, which is a great thing to have. Now, that is only on powertrain, and you must make sure you are showing maintenance and that you are maintaining the car. So as long as you do all that, you will be fine. As far as other cars in this price range, to touch something like this, you're going to be looking at like a well-equipped like SE Corolla, or even a mid-range Honda Civic, and they're not mid-size sedans. Those are borderline mid, you know, they're subcompact, in between compact and mid-size. They're not quite as big, and honestly, I'm not a fan of the CVT. That was one of the other big selling points on this vehicle, is that it is not equipped with a CVT transmission, which is the ones that don't really have real shift points. They are simulated shift points where they just have a belt that drives them, and those belts, if they slip or fail, will catastrophically fail. There's no starting to go bad. There's good or bad. I'd rather have a transmission that starts to have problems that I can still drive than one that just catastrophically blows up. Now, that sounds stupid, I guess, to some people, but to me it makes more sense. You know, as somebody that works on cars and have had cars with transmissions that have problems, I'd rather have a car that, you know, I can still somewhat drive. So that being said, that's kind of a tangent. I would highly recommend one of these cars to anybody looking for something in this segment. If you want to have a little bit more fun, I haven't personally experienced the GT with the 2.5 four-cylinder turbo. Has, I think, about 300 horsepower, which is about 100 horsepower more than this car, but you also give up the standard automatic in place of a dual clutch transmission, which also is another one of those things where they're really nice and they're sporty. I understand they don't necessarily shift as well. They're a little bit harsher, not as smooth and as comfortable as this transmission would be. And there's also more things that can go wrong, as they are a little bit more complex than a standard automatic transmission. So I feel that this transmission is the right way to go, and this package is the right way to go for the best fuel economy, the best overall package that you get with a Kia. So that being said, I would, like I said, I'd highly recommend one of these cars. And we're going to see how the next 3 years go, I guess. I'm going to give you updates as we go along. The car's going to be sticking around for hopefully a long time now. So you're going to get to see how people live with these cars. I know there's a large amount of people in the K5 group on Facebook that really love these cars, and then there's a group in there that are haters, but you're going to have that regardless. Everybody has their own opinion, and we can't all have the same opinion. So that being said, yeah, we're going to see how the next 3 years go, and I'll keep you in touch. Any questions, concerns, criticisms, leave them down below, and we'll see you soon. All right. Bye.